All right, so if you're an artist that struggles with weighing which skills you should be trying to work on to develop your either hobbyist or professional skill set as an artist, I relate to that. I've struggled with that very same conundrum when I was in college and also even working professionally doing art, both 2D and 3D, right? And it's one of those things where, like, especially when you have different interests that don't really align too much in terms of skill sets, it's really hard to weigh, okay, which one do I go for? And I think it's a very interesting conversation because you'll have a certain group of people that'll say you need to specialize, you need to be really good at something so you stand out amongst the crowd and you don't fade in and become like a jack of all trades. And I really used to think like that as well, to be honest. Like, I used to think, yeah, I need to be like super good at one thing so that I can just guarantee that, okay, I'll always be viable if I want to go and get something that's related to that thing. But then you also have a group of people that I'm more so falling into now where it's like, okay, it's important to also make sure that you're varied and that you're adaptable, right? And that you're able to do things that are not just pertaining to like one thing, right? For instance, for me, I'm a professional 3D artist, professional 3D generalist. So it's like I'm able to work both in 2D art settings and 3D art settings. And that's kind of something that, I mean, I went to school for it, but at the same time, I learned that there's a lot of things that line up, but there's a lot of things that don't line up in terms of like skill sets. Like, obviously, I think me being a traditionalist, like 2D artist, you know, coming from that background, that space, it was very much just translating my knowledge and the way I thought about art into a 3D setting, and then I was pretty much okay. And I think I had an advantage over someone who maybe didn't have that starting out, right? But there are a lot of things that are just purely specific to 3D that 2D you don't have to think about, right? Like, for instance, like learning all of the 3D packages, you know, for a while, UV unwrapping was like very, very much like not something that I liked doing. Now it's like, whatever, I can do it whatever I want, you know, light mapping, you know, UDIMs, or, you know, like making sure that, you know, all your normals are okay. Like, these are all very much 3D specific problems, or I guess, you know, technical art things that you have to kind of think about when you're creating in a 3D space versus 2D. It's really just, okay, does it look like it exists in a 3D space? And if it does, you're pretty much okay. You just have to think like you're in a 3D space, but in 3D space, you're in a 3D space. I know I'm terrible at explaining things, bros. I apologize. But my point is that the skills, they do overlap, but there's a lot of parts where it doesn't overlap. And I think that's where the issue comes in, is that when you're weighing a skill that you want to go out and obtain and it doesn't overlap with maybe that main thing that you want to do, it makes it really hard when you're now taking time away from the main thing you want to do to go and invest in that new thing that you want to do. But I'm here to say that, hey, I think it's good actually to have multiple interests in other things outside of just, like, say, drawing, or just, say, for instance, music, right? Now, if you have that main skill of drawing or painting, you can now combine that with music, right? Or vice versa, right? I just think it's very important to always, you know, have that secondary skill too, or a secondary interest that you may have. And I think a lot of us have like secondary interests when it comes to art. You also write too, like you're a writer, or maybe you are a singer, or maybe you are like some sort of like 3D, you know, clay sculpt artist, you know, in real life, right? Or maybe, you know, you do streaming or whatever the case so happens to be, right? Like, you could just combine these different interests, right? Or you can at least, you know, invest your time in other interests outside of just art. And I don't think it's a waste of time. I think for me, I had an interest in producing music. Like, for a while, I wanted to produce a lot of beats for like musicians, right? That was like my big thing when I was in college. And that translated over to when I started producing my own games, I was able to create the music for it, right? Now, hey, you know, it's going to be for some people, it's going to not be for other people. But my point is that I have that skill and I had that interest there. And that then fed back into something that I was able to create on my own. And that could be something that's the case for you as well. It really just comes back down to it being worth it or not. Is this something that you truly have an interest in, or do you have a fun time doing? Like me, I don't make as much music as I used to. And that's really not because like I dislike it, but I had that issue come up where it's like, okay, well, wait, I'm spending a lot of time doing this and I don't necessarily want to be a professional at it anymore. So do I still keep on producing the same amount, or do I maybe scale back and put more energy into something I really am taking more serious, like my art, right? These are questions that I had to ask. Now, I'm still glad that I ended up still doing music, right? I still do music in my free time. You know, I don't post it, you know, on the channel that you guys know about, but I have my music where I have it. And you know, I think it provides me an outlet to produce in a different way. And I think that all kind of feeds back into me as a creative. And I think it's very important to make sure you're varied as a creative, right? You never know what things could lead back into each other, right? Like me, I'm able to, you know, create my own concepts and then 3D model it, right? And, you know, that's something that I find very special. I have my own style when it comes to both the 2D and the 3D arts. And it's very fun, you know, it's very fun to kind of combine the mediums, you know, when you can, right? But these are just some things to maybe think about, you know? What is it for you? What are the skills that you maybe combine or maybe you like that are not necessarily invested in just drawing that, you know, you have an interest in? And maybe I implore you to maybe spend a little time doing that too. You never know where it could lead. But if you're new here, my name is Chris. I'm a game dev, storyteller, artist, and now a graphic novelist making content here on YouTube to help creatives improve their mindset and complete the projects they want to complete. If that sounds like you, go ahead and hit that like button for me. Subscribe to your boy. I try to upload bi-weekly, and the goal is to stay consistent throughout this whole year with this channel and my project, The Turn-Based Hero, which you can find out more details on my socials at chrismason_01 on Instagram and Twitter. But with that, I'm gonna go ahead and get about. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, night, or whatever. And it's been your boy Chris, and I'm gonna holla at you later. Peace.